Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have a brilliant presentation by astrologer Ehsan Khazeni titled Persian Astrology, Legacy and Continuity. And lastly, if you wish to view our current class, workshop and webinar offerings, please visit KeplerCollege.org. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
Thank you. And I'm going to introduce Ehsan. So Ehsan Khazeni is a pioneering research on Persian astrology. After learning Vedic and Western astrology and participating in many international events, Ehsan decided to intensively focus on reviving Persian astrology. He works on Persian and Arabic manuscripts and also designed a 200-hour course on Persian astrology at his school in Tehran. Ehsan is the developer of Tashtar astrology software, Bindu astrology software, and Saptarishi's research software, and has a close partnership with Cosmic Pattern Software. He's also co-founder of Sadarius Academy. So you can find Ehsan at binduastrology.com. And please correct me, Ehsan, if I said any of those words incorrectly. I hope I got them right. We are so happy to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to Ehsan, and I hope everyone enjoys our webinar today.
Thank you so much, Lori. It's really an immense pleasure for me to be a part of this event. So let me first share my screen. So hello, everybody. Thank you for attending this workshop. It's called Persian Astrology, Legacy and Continuity. I have a story for actually how I become involved in Persian astrology. Years ago, when I started learning Vedic astrology, I didn't know anything like a living, working Persian astrology exists. I was thinking that Persian astrology was something destroyed by the Arabs' conquest, and during these years, we don't have anything for it. And then later, I started the DMA course, diploma course of late Robert Zoller. When I attended on that course, it was a very well-organized course on medieval astrology. And then I saw many Iranian names like Biruni, Abu Mashar, and Sahl, and many others. There, I decided to go and find the manuscripts of those astrologers. And out of sudden, I noticed that, oh, I have access to more resources than I couldn't imagine. I had full manuscripts of all of those astrologers. And but for example, Robert Zoller were mentioning few lines of their books. Then I decided to work more on Persian astrology. When I went to Indian conferences, I chose some techniques I found in Persian astrology books, but I didn't have any any systematic or organized view of Persian astrology. I was just thinking it's a bunch of techniques and I can use them anywhere. And I started to present some of these techniques in the conferences. Later, I noticed that actually we have more and more sources of astrology in Iran that never presented in international societies. And then I decided to work more on this system. In this lecture, I want to cover a few subjects. The first subject is Is Persia, because we are talking about Persian astrology and what makes Persian astrology different. Then I introduced the Persian system of astrology and Persian system of learning, because once upon a time, we had a learning system that according to that learning system, we could learn, we could teach, and we could deliver, and we could survive the huge knowledge of astrology and other spiritual sciences. And then we go to the chapters and topics of Persian astrology and the roadmap for Persian astrologers. Then I introduce the tools and techniques of Persian astrology. And finally, I talk about the Persian astrology today, because now we can say that we have it. This is a map of Persia or Achaemenian times, the 500 BC. And this is the ancient Persia. you can see that how big it was. It was next to the ancient Greece, Libya, some parts of North Egypt, Syria, the whole Turkey, and some parts of Europe, and then the contemporary Iran and Pakistan, Afghanistan, some parts of India, some parts of China. So it was the expansion of the greater Persia. Today, we have this small country as Iran, many parts actually separated politically from Iran. These are the political borders. But there is a definition in Encyclopedia Iranica. We have the term Iranian cultural continent, or sometimes we call it Greater Persia or Greater Iran. Greater Iran or Greater Persia refers to a broad cultural region influenced by Iranian peoples and languages. This region includes parts of West Asia, Caucasus, Central Asia, South Asia, East Asia, significantly Xinjiang, the Eastern China. These areas have been historically ruled by various Iranian empires, leading to a blend of Iranian cultural and linguistic elements with local traditions. The region also includes places where significant Iranian communities still maintain their cultural practices. So, actually, this is the area that the Persian astrology developed in. It's really interesting because when we say, actually, it's a tradition in ancient times and also in modern times that we call the eminent people by their city or the city they born or the city they come from. So when we say Abu Mashar Balkhi, it means that actually he's from Balkh, and the city of Balkh is in contemporary Afghanistan. Or Ali Shah Bukhari is from Bukhara in Uzbekistan. Mahmud Ghaznavi comes from Ghazni, and Musa Khwarazmi from Khwarazm, which is in Uzbekistan. So we see actually many of the Iranian names are coming from Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, sometimes Tajikistan, like Khojandi. And then Ayub Tabari, known as Omer Tiberiadis, comes from Tiberia or Tabaristan, which is in Mazandaran, Iran. Or Abu Nasr Qumi from the city of Qom, a city close to Tehran right now. Nobakht is the astrologer who was employed by Mansur to found the city of Baghdad when they actually laid the foundation of Baghdad. They asked Nobakht and Mashallah, two eminent astrologers of that time, to find a good time to establish the city of Baghdad. And Nobakht was the chief astrologer of that project. His name is Nobakht Ahwazi, coming from Ahwaz. And so it's a big Persia. It doesn't limit into just the contemporary Iran. And yes, Iran, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, western regions of China, Iraq, Turkey, Kurdish regions, and southern coastlines and islands of the Persian Gulf. So all these area is the greater Persia. And when we talk about Persian astrology, it's the astrology developed in all these area under the main core of Persia. But we have another astrological story here. If we look at this map of the world, we see the most eastern part is Japan, and then the most western part is coast of Africa. So the midpoint of these two falls here somewhere in Iran, in the border of Iran and Afghanistan, and it's called Nimruz. It's a state in Afghanistan, Nimruz, which means the midday. It means that actually when we have sun here, when we have the noon here, the whole ancient world has a light. So here is the midpoint of the world. And then when astrologers want to cast a chart for the world in the mundane astrology, they choose this location as the main location of the for the world. So they cast a chart for this location, and then they interpret it for the whole world. Otherwise, actually, we can cast the local charts as well. But for the mundane, we use this center. And interestingly, you can see its reflection in the maps of the world. So you see, for example, this is a map created something in, sorry, I cannot see. Okay, it was something 16th century or 17th century. You see that actually the Eastern Hemisphere starts here from the coast of Africa, and Iran is in the center. And in other map, you see this is the equator, and this is the ecliptic, and then you see again here Iran is in the midpoint. And this is the map of quadrants habitabilis according to Abu Rayhan Biruni in 1030. And here you see that actually the meridian of the east and west, and Iran is exactly on the 90 degrees here in the middle. It's called Fars. And interestingly, actually, the people, the very original people of this area were called Medes, because actually this area was called Media, the middle of the world. Here is another map, and you see the same. And even in the more modern maps, here is the border coastline, and here is the 90 degrees in Iran. And it's interesting. Persia was the astrological and astronomical center of the world since ancient times to 1884. So in October 1884, astronomers and representatives of 25 countries came together in Washington at the International Meridian Conference to recommend a common prime meridian for a geographical charts that would be acceptable to all parties concerned. So they actually made a political decision to create something to be acceptable for these 25 countries, not the whole world, and not astrological. It's a very political decision. The full story can be read here. This is the PDF file in the archive.org website. You can find the whole story. And the point is, if we want to use the mundane astrology, we should go to the original and to the origins of the astrology, and considering the original geography corresponds to astrology. So the next question is, what makes Persian astrology different? The first thing is it's very comprehensive. We have everything existed during last 15 centuries, and for 1,400 years or some more, actually everything collected in Persian astrology kept in Farsi or Arabic. And I have some objections to the way actually the history defined. I will show you why. But we kept the whole thing, and we also developed the more materials. The fact is, it's not fully discovered. Most of these material never translated in English and other international languages. Many of them are in form of manuscripts kept in the libraries, and even many of them never listed. So we have the books which are never listed, let alone to be studied or rectified or published, translated. Anyways, one very good quality of Persian astrology is it's very objective. It has variety of techniques and rich resources, diverse manuscripts, and eminent astrologers. So let's go to each of these areas. A huge treasure of astrology kept here. When we talk about Persian astrology, if we open one or two or few of the books, we see a huge number of works and quotes from astrologers like Hermes, Aristotle, Valens, Dorotheus, Ptolemy. And okay, these are the astrologers you are very familiar in Western astrology, medieval astrology, and Hellenistic astrology. So we have several Hermetic books in Arabic and Farsi. I recently worked on a Hermetic treatise on lunar mansions. We have the Arabic book of astrology written by Aristotle. We have some translations of Vitus Valens, Dorotheus, and Ptolemy. And also we have original Persian astrologers like Zoroaster himself, Zadan Farrokh, Bazyar, Andarzgar, and some other Persian astrologers before Arabs' conquest to Iran. And we also have some early 6th, 7th, 8th century astrologers like Kendi, Mashallah, Nobacht, Abu Mashar, Sahl. Actually, we have two Sahl, Sahl ibn Nobacht, Sahl, son of Nobacht, and Sahl, son of Bashr, which was Israeli, known Sahl ibn Bashr, Israeli. And Kushyar, Shahmardan Razi, Abul Fazl ibn Khatib. So there are many names here. And if you look at these names, you probably don't know many of them. And this list can be more and more. So the objection I have to the history of astrology is that when we read the books of history of astrology, we usually see the very early astrologers, and then it's presented as if, okay, it was some early astrologers, and then they delivered the whole things in the West during the medieval times, and then they translated, and the Westerners did the most of the work. But at the same time, we had this stream of lineage of astrologers working a lot in Iran and in rest of Greater Persia. And they never mentioned, their work never studied. So this is the time to go into this branch of astrology and go to study more and more traditional books that we have here. I said that it's not fully discovered. You may ask why we don't know many of these names. I read the Astrologer's magazine published at 1890, and it was really interesting. It was a topic about Persian astrology. They said, we have pleased in informing our readers that a manuscript work on astrology many centuries old in Persian characters has lately come into our possessions. They were very happy that they have one astrology books, and we have submitted it to several in England. They say it's a work on the stars and suggested that only an expert in the science can properly translate it. We are therefore sending it to our friends, Mr. Chidambaran Iyer in India, learned translator of the Brihad Jataka. And it's really interesting why they sent the Persian book to India, but not to Iran. It's really about the political conflicts between Iranians and some Western countries. So they actually didn't have any contact with Iranian astrologers. However, here they say, it is well known that astrology is largely practiced in Persia, and as the ability of the Shah astrologers is proverbial, it may be the means of throwing some flashlight up in the language of the stars. So it's interesting because the astrologers of the Shah at that time in 1890s, actually were, we had the court astrologers in Iran, and at the end of this session, I will present some of them to you because actually I could track the lineage and I could find the granddaughter of one of them and the grandchildren of one of them. I found all of the manuscripts of them. Anyway, I will explain at the end of this session. So we have a long way to go to fully discover this Persian astrology and deliver these materials to the West. Okay, again, what makes Persian astrology different? It's very objective. How it's objective? Objective means verifiable information based on facts and evidences. Persian astrology is fully evidence-based. Actually, in Western astrology, when you calculate the dignities, you call it a score, and we call it evidence. So we say Venus, for example, has 5 evidences, and Mercury has 2 evidences. Instead of a score, we use the word evidence. And it was really interesting because some of my colleagues, my doctor colleagues, physicians, when they studied Persian astrology, they said, wow, it means that we have evidence-based science. And by subjective, it means information or perspectives based on feelings, opinions, and emotions. So in modern times, we see that people actually feel this is better, or they feel that this should be associated to that, but there is no reason for that. In Persian astrology, we have a lot of objective arguments between astrologers to keep the story objective. One of the results of this objective point of view is the quantitative system of dignities and debilities. They divided the dignities and debilities into highly effective, medium effective, and low effective. And then they divided each group per se to high importance, medium importance, and low importance. And they give the evidences or the scores to each of them. So highly effective, high important is 9 points. And highly effective, medium importance is 8 points. And low importance is 7 points. So low effective and low importance will have 1 point. And it's interesting to know, it's really mind-blowing that we have 93 dignities and 84 debilities in this system, totally 177 items considered for every planet. Like this. For example, a planet in domicile has 9 points. On the degree of exaltation, it's 9 points, but on the sign of exaltation, it will be 8 points. The planet is, when it's Samimi, or as you Westerners say, Khazemi, it's 9 points. Mubtaz or Al-Mutan is 9 points. Rice with a benefic fixed star and Paran with a benefic fixed star gets 9 points. And on the other side, we have the minus points. Detriment gets 9 minus points. Degree of debilitation, combustion, rise with malefic fixed star, solar eclipse and lunar eclipse gives minus 9 points to the sun and the moon. And planetary occultations also as well. And then we have the 8 points. So exaltation degree was 9 points, but exaltation sign receives 8 points. A planet in a direct motion gets 8 points, and the planet in retrograde motion gets minus 8. And there are a lot of terms that most of them are not does not have English equivalent, so I ignored this. Just wanted to show you how this system works. So this list is a highly effective, highly important, and this one is highly effective, medium important. So as a statistical view, we have 20 items considered for a planet in a sign, 18 items considered for a planet in a house, 22 items is about the relation of the planet with sun, moon, and the nodes, 9 elements for the degree of planets. So a male planet in a male degree, a female planet in a female degree are better placed. Also, we have, for example, dark degrees, bright degrees, void degrees, or ambiguous degrees. So every degree has its own qualities. And 23 sign division, like the Vargas in the Vedic astrology, and then 6 parameters for 6 dignities for triplicities, and 24 scores, 24 types of planetary relationships should be considered. Also, fixed stars, directions, and motions, and many astronomical and coordinations should be considered. 34 items are for astronomical and coordination. So it's very important because Persian astrology is very astronomical. And if we see in modern times, astronomy lost its place in astrology. So the two are so separated, and we don't see the astronomical reason behind astrology. So totally there are 177. And this is a sample of actually all calculated numbers. So these are the powers of the sun, or the dignities of the sun. The next column is the debilities of the sun. And again, here is for the moon, dignities and debilities. The next column here, Saturn and its debilities. So this is the way actually we work, and we try our best to make it objective, keep it objective. Now, it's very systematic. Another point is Persian astrology is very systematic. And I want to introduce the system of Persian astrology. When we talk about system, we talk about an organized set of doctrines, ideas, and principles usually intended to explain the arrangement or working of a systematic whole. So when we see astrological core here, it's affected by mythology, philosophy, cosmology, cosmography, astronomy, calendar systems, chronology, and other astrological systems as influenced, for example, with Vedic astrology, with Chinese astrology, and with Western astrology, Greek astrology. And on the other hand, we have the outputs like astrological works, astrology works, astrological writing of people, history, culture, poetry, other sciences, and other systems of astrology. We can see the reflection of Persian astrology on other systems of astrology. So it's a complete set of a system. So if we want to learn Persian astrology in a metaphysical context, we should learn the mythology and philosophy and cosmology behind it. And we have to also learn some astronomy in a way, actually, the ancients looked at the sky. So I also have some examples here about, for example, the story of creation. In the story of creation, actually, in every culture, in every country, we have some stories of creation. And in a story of creation in Persian system belongs to Zoroastrianism. Ahura Mazda created the universe and the cosmic order that he maintains. He created the twin spirits, Sepanta Maino and Angara Maino. So here you see that the word Angra is exactly the root for the word angry in English. So the former beneficent, choosing truth, light, and life, and the latter destructive, choosing deceit, darkness, and death. The struggle of the spirits against each other makes up the history of the world and is reflected in the choices between good and evil that humanity constantly faces. Okay, this is the story. And at the continue of this story, we have the horoscope of the world mentioned in a book named Bondahesn, Book of Creation. And in this book, this is the battlefield of Ahura Mazda and Ahriman. I call it battlefield in the traditional term, and I call it playground in the modern term because I feel it's like a play. And when Ahriman attacked, Hormaz or Jupiter was in the first house in 15 degrees of Cancer. And this is the time that actually all the planets, you see all the planets here are in their exaltation decrease. Sun is in the 10th house in the 19th degree of Aries. Moon is in the 3rd degree of Taurus. Venus is 27th degree of Pisces. Mars is in 28th degree of Capricorn. And Saturn is in 21st degree of Libra. So every planet is on its exaltation sign. And also Mercury is in 15th degree of Virgo and exalted. But astronomically, it's impossible because Mercury should be around the sun. And then the story tells that the first battle happened between Mercury and the Ahriman counterparts. So it's really interesting. Mercury was defeated, and then Mercury came here in the Pisces next to the Venus. So they consider the astronomical terms as well, but they also keep the story going on by the concept of exaltation. So it's really interesting because exaltation has a great role in Persian astrology. You might have heard about the technique called Fardar or Firdaria. So Firdaria is actually a Latinized name. The original name is Fardar, and interestingly, Far is the light which is given by Ahura Mazda to the kings and the prophets. So Far means the exaltation, and actually all these planets stayed at their exaltation place to help Ahura Mazda to win the battle or the game. So when we study Fardar or so-called Firdaria, we study the way actually we can increase the light and we can analyze the dignities and the light. So, and I can also say the suffix dar is far and dar. Dar is like Darius, the Great, the King of Kings. It means the one who has or the one who holds. So literally, it means the one who has dignity, the one who has the light. Okay, and when we go to the philosophy, okay, it's a question that, okay, which philosophy we follow in Persian system of astrology? Basically, in the ancient times, it came from the Zoroastrian roots, uh, Avestan philosophy. But later, after Arabs' conquest, actually we put all the branches of philosophy together, and it's really interesting because we studied Platonic, Aristotelian at the same time, and also Hermetic astrology, Pythagorean astrology, Stoicism, Neoplatonic, and Sufism, because they are all interconnected in philosophy. And also Illumination philosophy of Sohrawardi, called Hikmat al-Ishraq. And also we have Islamic and Quranic thoughts. All these philosophies somehow observed in different astrological works. So some authors are more interested in Hermetic sciences. They brought more Hermetic philosophy in. Some other, for example, added Platonic taste. Some other added Aristotelian logic. And it's really interesting. We have a book called 100 Words of Ptolemy, or translated in Latin as Centillicoium. That work is interpreted by Nasreddin Tusi, and in that work, the first word is علم النجوم منك ومنها. It means knowledge of astrology is from you and from them. So from you and from them can be interpreted in several terms. And you can interpret it in a hermetic way, like as above, so below. But Nasruddin Tusi started to interpret it in a Aristotelian concept, and he brings his own philosophy into that and interpret it in a completely new way. And he created a new way of interpreting astrological influences, explain that in a very philosophical way. Well, we know that actually the three teachers of philosophy are called Aristotle as the first teacher, Farabi as the second teacher, and Tusi as the third teacher. Later, I will explain how Tusi affected astrology a lot, because he made a lot of huge changes in astrology in Persia. So if we talk about the influence of other astrological systems, we know that actually they constantly interacted. But in Sassanid era and later, some Greek and Indian works translated to Pahlavi and later translated to Farsi and Arabic. Nasruddin Tusi added 12 Chinese animals to Persian calendar. And then before British colonization, the Persian language was the lingua franca of the Indian subcontinent and a widely used official language in North India. So actually, before some 19th centuries, Indian astrologers were also writing their works in Farsi. So we have hundreds of Persian, hundreds of Vedic astrology works written in Farsi, which I suppose many of them does not exist in Indian yet. So it's also a huge collection that we have in position, and we can actually translate them soon. After actually Persian system of astrology, let's talk about the Persian system of learning. And this is about the Nasruddin Tusi. It's his chart, and it's really interesting because when I decided to bring his chart, I had his birth data, but I never looked at his chart. But for this workshop, I brought his chart, and suddenly I noticed that he has a Saturn transit right now. The retrograde Saturn today is exactly on his Saturn on 18 degree 58 minutes, and to me, it's not accidental. Anyways, he has several astronomy and astrology works. He was wonderful in astronomy, one of the greatest mathematicians ever we had. He wrote Zij-il-Khani, the astronomical tables that actually remained for 600 years, 700 years. And he also created Maraga Observatory. And the history of Maraga Observatory is really interesting. You know, the Mongols attacked Iran. Holaku came to Iran, and you know they wiped out a huge number of population of Iran, and all the scientists scattered. They moved to other countries, and then Nasruddin Tusi became the minister of Holaku. And 20 years after that wild attack, they actually create the observatory of Marade. So it's really interesting, you know, 20 years after this invade, he can bring the whole things back. He also wrote the interpretation of 100 quotes of Ptolemy Centiliquium, and he also has several philosophical and ethical works for kings and many other scientific books. And one of his very important books is called Manners of Students. So it's a time that all the teachers are gone, all the scientists are gone, and but we have hope. We have the children here, and they need to train themselves. So he wrote this procedure named Manner of Students. So he teaches everybody to how to choose a master, how to find a good science, how to find which science is beneficial, and so on. So it's really useful book as a system of learning. One more pillar of Persian astrology is that not Persian astrology, but Persian learning system, is that we define 8 essential topics for every book or every science. So, for example, if we want to teach astrology, we should answer to these 8 questions. The definition of knowledge, we should define it. Subject matter of knowledge, utility and advantage of that knowledge, other originator of that knowledge, chapters and topics of the knowledge, position and status of that knowledge among other sciences, purpose and objective of knowledge, and classification and divisions of that knowledge. So for astrology, we do the same. For writing any book, we do the same. And for designing my course on Persian astrology, I also did the same. So, definition of astrology, according to Nasruddin Tusi, is astrology is the knowledge of understanding the becoming universe through the reasoning of spherical conditions. So, first is about the understanding of the becoming universe or refreshing universe. So, it's very essential. You see the term becoming in Hegelian philosophy, for example. And then through the reasoning of spherical conditions. So it doesn't see that in a cause and effect. It says about the finding the reason. And also spherical conditions. It means that you should be master in spherical astronomy to fully understand the mechanism of astrology. So spherical astronomy is an essential part of Persian astrology. And actually, because we don't have much time, actually, I go to the chapters and topics of Persian astrology and the roadmap of Persian astrology we define. First, we need a background knowledge, mathematics, trigonometry, philosophy, natural sciences, and literature. So most of the people who go to astrology today already studied some parts of these things in a school. But during studying astrology, you feel you need more of all of these to become more content. And the next step is learning calendars, conversions, and holidays and celebrations of all nations. As I already said, Persia was a multifaceted culture. All the several religions and several nations were living together in this under the same authorization administration. So uh, we need to learn old Persian calendars, modern Persian calendars, Arabic, Roman, Jewish, Chinese, Christian, and other local and global calendars. And we should understand the holidays and celebrations and the way actually they see their own calendars. Because if you want to understand what happens amongst the nations, you should know their calendars and their costumes. The next thing is learning essentials of astrology and how to track them in astrological calendar for daily practice. Astrological calendar, Persian astrological calendar is one of my favorite things, which I hope one day we can bring it into the international level because, it's not ephemeris and it's not the daily planner. It's a very complex version of calendar, gives you a new feeling of how you can understand the upcoming events of astrology of the sky. So for reading that calendar, you need to know about the planets, signs, houses, aspects, hypothetical bodies. In Persian astrology, we have 7 hypothetical bodies. And then you need to know about the duality, modality, and triplicities. Also elements, house divisions, rise and set and meridian position of the planets, lunar mansions, phases, void of course, eclipses, occultation, helical phenomena, and also some advanced planetary relationships. We have 48 patterns of planetary relationships, which each of them has a meaning. And then we study 3 levels of electional astrology. It's really interesting because we first learn uh, electional astrology before learning natal astrology. We study electional astrology because we need to learn how to use the time and how to challenge with the time. So we have 3 levels of electional astrology. First is about the daily routine, like checking the planetary hours or the moon sign or uh, daily notes on moon phases or exaltation or some notes in the calendar. Then we use basic election instructions, and then we use the advanced election using 7 rules. For every election, we need to consider 7 rules to ensure that the election is going well. We need to ensure to have a well-placed moon, suitable sign for the moon, powerful dispositor for the moon, suitable ascendant, well-placed ascendant dispositor, and the house of matter and planet of matter. So, for example, if it's for marriage, we should have a good Venus and good 7th house. Or if it's about let's say, talking to a ruler, we should have a good Sun and the good MC, for example. And keeping all these 7 at the same time is very hard because as soon as you find one, you may miss the other one. And sometimes moon and ascendant are not in a favorable place. So it's something very challenging. And then it's a time to choose the branch of astrology to learn. Sometimes we learn natal astrology called Mawalid, means the newborns, including natal, medical, psychological, and predictive astrology. We learn electional astrology for choices called ikhtiyarat. We learn Dalail Alam means reasons of the world for mundane, political, financial, weather forecast, and so on. And also we learn Horary for questions. So it's a time to know what I want to do. Sometimes I just want my chart read. So I go to astrologers and okay, please read my chart. And the astrologer goes to the natal chart. Sometimes I have a passive intention. I don't know what to do, and I have intention. I have some worries, so I go to the horary for a temporary solution. And sometimes I have an active intention. I want to do something. Then I use the electional astrology. So uh, here is that free will comes in electional astrology. We have the free will to choose the proper time to improve the situation. We have horary as a very surrendered version of questioning, and we have the natal chart for a regular reading. So we should consider each of them and which one we need. In advanced, then we learn advanced astronomy, including spherical astronomy, how to use astrolabe and other observation tool, how to read the Zich or astronomical tables, and how to cast the horoscope by hand, and how to create a personal horoscope book. Many of you might be familiar with the astrolabes. I have some versions here. These are the astrolabes created by my colleagues, and it seems that at the very first stage, it seems a little bit strange, but I have a disassembled version. If you look at this surface, you see, it's like some stellarium software. You see the horizon altitude lines, and then you can find the houses here around. And on this other page, which actually rotates on the previous one, you see the 12 signs and the northern stars and the southern stars here. And also these are the 12 signs. Then on the back part, you see the some rulers for the observation and the equation of time. Here is the equation of time for several times of the year. So you have a full computer with you. You can simply turn this hand in toward a certain star, and you can rotate the star and find the fixed star here. For example, it's the fixed star at Ter, and then I put this on the fixed star at Ter. I rotate it toward the star, and then here on the east, I can read the ascendant degree. So without having a computer, you can simply find the fixed star and simply find the time ascendant and many other information. You can do the house systems because you already have it on this system, on the surface. You simply can see if the degree of your planet falls on any of these houses. And then you can also do the progression easily according to the age of the person. You can convert the zodiacal degrees to other systems like the right ascension or oblique ascension. And all the things can be easily done but simply with an astrolabe. So using astrolabe is very fun. I hope maybe one day we can practice it together, practice how to make it and how to use it. And then the next level is how to create a personal horoscope book. What are the horoscope books? Horoscope books are like the modern computer generated reports, but made by hand for the kings and nobles. So it includes some basic information about astrology, description of date, time, and place of birth, rectification of the birth time if needed, detailed calculation of the planetary position, house systems, and the CZG charts, the new moon or the full moon before the birth, and some calculations for the previous Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, some calculation for the New Year period to this conjunction, and additional calculations including Hilaj, or known as Hilek, Kat Khoda or Al Kokodun, dignities and aspects, and rays. These rays are very interesting because at some days you see, for example, both sun and the moon on the horizon. And when you check the distance, you see actually they are 120 degrees apart. But when you see in the sky, you see they are something like 40 degrees apart. It's because actually you see them not as a zodiacal aspect. You see them from the surface of the Earth. So the distance and the degrees are different. We call them the rays. And we also use them in Persian astrology. And then we have the detailed information for the 12 houses, the fixed stars, the parts or lots, known as Arabic parts or Arabic lots, And then we have the tables for Fardar, progression, profections, and sometimes we have the solar return charts and more additional calculations. The more important the person is, the more additional informations they add to the horoscope books. Okay, so I keep going on by introducing the big picture of natal interpretation because I believe most of you are more fan of natal interpretation. Uh, actually, the picture I give you is not the picture given by any specific author. It's collected from several places and I put them together. We start from the birth chart rectification. We first find the chart, the time of the birth. And sometimes we know the time of the birth and sometimes we don't know. But anyways, it's good to rectify that chart because it's not only about the moment of the birth. Sometimes it's about how you may be connected into key birth events. So what are the pre-birth analysis? There are 6 charts that are sometimes sequenced differently. Well, maybe one of them are go on forth or back. So we cast the Aries ingress chart before the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. Then we cast the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction chart. So for example, the previous Jupiter and Saturn conjunction was 2020, December, 21st December 2020. And the previous one was in the 20s. And the previous one was in the 1980s. And again, the previous one, the 1960s, almost every 20 years. So we cast the chart of the conjunction. If somebody born today, we also should see the chart for December 2020 when Jupiter and Saturn conjunct. And also the Aries chart, 21st March 2020. This is the tracking of the spirit of the native. And then we see the Aries ingress before birth, and we see the CZG chart, or the new moon or the full moon before the birth. We also cast the conception chart and the Aries ingress chart before the conception. So these are the ways actually we track the whole story before the birth. Also, we have some methods to track the mother's pregnancy times. Every month of mother's pregnancy ruled by a planet. The first month is ruled by Saturn. So we see where is Saturn, where is the bound or limits of the Saturn. We usually use the Egyptian bounds, and if it's sometimes it shows the hope of the mother, sometimes it shows the disappointment of the mother or the fear of the mother. It shows how the mother feels about the baby on that month. Then for the next month, we check the Jupiter. And for the third month, we check Mars. And for the fourth month, we check Sun. So it's Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon for the 7 months. And the 8th month goes back to the Saturn. That's why in ancient times, they used to say the 8th month baby may not leave. If the baby delivered at the 8th month, it gets cold and dry because it's a nature of Saturn. And for the 9th month, we use Jupiter again. So after the analyzing the mother's pregnancy months, if needed, we check the birth chart, health-wise, about the health, longevity, and the quality of life analysis. Using Hilaj, Kathoda, Qasem means the divider, and we check the planets that grant life and those who take the life. And we estimate the years of the length of life for the native. And is he healthy, and is he enjoys or suffers from health situation? Then we check the temperament and disposition of the person, psychological analysis of the individual's characteristics and temperaments. And we also check the afflictions and causes of the person, potential psychological and physical harms the person might have. Then we check, we go to in-depth examination of 12 houses by checking each and every of the houses in a detail, how planets are placed in each of them. And then we go to the life stages analysis of the ages, Fardar, annual charts, direction, progression, profection, cycles, and other time lore techniques. We also extract the dangerous times and death analysis. Sometimes there are some hard hard times anyway. When we see some terminal points, we should actually warn the person about that terminal points. And after the person dies, we have the otherworldly life analysis. It can be done from the birth chart and also can be done from the time of birth. There are several methods for that. So it's a full big picture of natal interpretation. Finally, let's talk about the tools and techniques of Persian astrologers. We have a toolbox, and in this toolbox, we have 5 methods of rectification. Interestingly, these methods are called method of Vitis Valens, method of Hermes, method of Ptolemy, method of Zoroaster, and midpoint method of Kendi. So it's really interesting. 4 of these methods associated to the Greeks, and 1 method associated, 3 of them associated to the Greeks, and 1 associated to Zoroaster. Then we have the system of dignities and abilities, which I demonstrated at the beginning, 177 dignities and abilities. We have planetary rays, how the aspects are happen on the horizon. And we have a full system of conjunctions. We check a 2,880 year cycle of conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn. And we carefully perfect and progress the points to see how the worldly events happens. So it's somehow connects the mundane and natal astrology together. We have several methods of perfections. So in perfections, we usually perfect 1 sign for 1 year. But in Persian system, we say it's 13 signs for 1 year. It's a full rotation and 1 more sign. It means it's 2 degrees and 30 minutes, a Devada Shamsha or a Dodecaterium per year, per month. And it means also 1 degree and 5 seconds per day. So we can have it like a clock with 3 hands, daily, monthly, and yearly perfections. And we also have progressions, different kinds of progressions according to the needs. So it's really important to the rate of the progression and the coordination of progression really depends on the model of system we work on. And also we have the reverse perfections and reverse progressions. We also have the lunar mansion. It's really interesting. We use 28 tropical lunar mansions. The sun, and it's really interesting. It's lunar mansions, but it's also related to the sun. Sun travels every mansion for 13 days. If you divide 365 by 28, you get the number 13, exactly number 13. So the sun is 13 days in every mansion. And when the sun passes through 1 mansion, the previous mansion rises. So we call it the rise of the mansion. And the opponent mansion, the mansion on the other side is sets. So we call it the opponent mansion. So the rising and setting of the mansions are the subject of matter in Persian system. And we have the Hilaj system. I called it Hilaj system because we have 5 Hilaj that are 5 givers of life. These 5, which are the sun, moon, ascendant degree, CZG degree, the degree of the new moon or the full moon before the birth, and the part of fortune. So these 5 are the network of Hilaj. And it's really interesting because sun is the source of light, moon is the reflection of light, ascendant is also a part of this network because in the CZG chart, CZG is the point that sun and moon meet or sun gives the most light to the moon, new moon or the full moon. And the degree of ascendant is the degree of the most dignified planet in that chart at the moment of CZG. It's really interesting. It's very complicated, but I skipped that. And finally, part of fortune, because part of fortune is also sun, moon minus sun plus ascendant. It's a relationship between sun, moon, and ascendant. So this is a network of Hilaj, and in this network, we consider 5 sources of light and 5 sources of life. And then we see when we have all these 5, when we have some of them, and when we might be denied of receiving this light, which might be the time for the death or serious life problems. We also have well, there is a branch of Persian astrology is known as knowledge of origins. The knowledge of origins talks about the origins of time, place, space, and all these. So where is the beginning of the world? Where is the middle of the world? Where is the beginning of the sky? So we have a controversy of tropical and sidereal issue. So in Persian astrology, we have a lot of definitions for how to begin the zodiac, and it's all astronomical. And where is the beginning of the time? Where is the beginning of the new cycle we are in? And what are those big cycles? And how many years passed from that beginning, and where we are in the time? So these are the subjects of knowledge of origins. For aspects and relationships, I said that actually we have 48 aspect patterns and several kinds of relationship between the planets. We should consider them all. We use the solar return, lunar return, Saturn return, and all the return charts, but specifically the solar return is the most important one, and we have a lot of rules for that. Ptolemaic ages. Ptolemy defines the ages for the planets. We also use that. The first 4 years for the moon, and then for the Mercury, and then for the Venus, and so on. We have extensive use of parts and lots, and also systematic way of using fixed stars and their associated planets, and also fardars. These are the main tools that actually we use in Persian astrology toolbox. And a Persian astrologer constantly uses all these tools and techniques. Okay, so I'm going to finish this lecture by talking about the Persian astrology today, and then we go to the questions and answers. Years ago, I didn't know Persian astrology even exists. I started to collect all the information from everywhere, all the libraries, and I could find some wonderful teachers who were not, in public. I find them, meet them in different cities of Iran. One of them, my mentor, Ali Akbar Saberi, who wrote 6 books on mundane astrology, mundane Persian astrology. And I met many other great astrologers. And then I noticed that actually it's not only about astrology, it's about Iranology. So I started Persian studies, literature, history, mythology, and all these. And then more and more, the more I studied the other sciences, the more I received astrological information. I could collect hundreds of astrological works. And then I started when COVID started, actually I started my course on Persian astrology in Iran. At that time, I thought it's just one course, and then actually I continued. I kept going on, and now I have a 200 hours full course on Persian astrology, 2,000 students in Iran, and I'm very hopeful that amongst these students, many of them can become next me. They can become representatives of Persian astrology, present Persian astrology into the international level. We have a lot to translate, a lot to present, and I'm really hopeful that in next few years, actually we can have Persian astrology as the third big branch of astrology next to Vedic astrology and Western astrology. we have a lot to share between these three branches. Thank you so much, and I'm ready for the questions.
Okay, great. We have quite a few. Why don't we start with, why don't you share how people can learn more about your course? Because I think that there may be some people in the audience who are interested.
Well, if they're asking about my Persian course, they can contact me. But about the international courses, I've not started that very intensively. We had some discussions with you to maybe we can standardize, bring my content into the KeplerCollege standards so we can have some.
Yeah, great, great. Alrighty, so let's get started. I'm going to go to the top. What was that prime meridian on Persia in 19th century considered a Greenwich meridian, 0 time zone now?
Well, the Greenwich meridian is something really new. Actually, every country has its own local meridian, but actually in 1884 they considered Greenwich as the prime meridian in the world. So actually they considered Greenwich as a 0 point. But before that, the 0 point was actually the edge of the coast of Africa, and Iran was in the 90 degrees.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is if there are any manuscripts in Pahlavi or Avestan.
Well, we have a few manuscripts in Pahlavi. Recently, some of my friends and colleagues started to translate some of them, and they're not the full text. They're fractions of the text. Like I mentioned one of them, the Hormazd ba Harvis Pagahi, for example, is the name of the one. I will write it here. This one recently rectified by Raham Ashe, a wonderful scholar who works on Persian ancient languages. Another one is Bundahesh, which has a lot of astrological information and 2-3 astrological chapters on it. And we have many other fractions of the Pahlavi text. In Avesta, we have a problem of translation. The translations of Avesta is very new, and in that translations, for example, it was talking about the fixed star Spica, but it mentioned as a bright. So it's translated like "oh bright." So it's not "oh bright," it's "oh Spica." So the technical terms transliterated, and then we lost. So it needed to be retranslated. Some of this material, but there are some Avestan texts, yes.
Okay, great. I know they're asking for you to repeat, but that was a lot that you listed. So I'm going to recommend that you go to the replay and you can listen and you can get that list again. That would be the best way to get that. And we will have this replay posted on our YouTube channel later this week. So if you heard something today and you're wanting to hear it again, you will have your chance. Okay, the next question. Does Persian astrology differ from Western and Vedic astrology? I think you've already kind of covered that today, but does it use the true planet placement? I think that's versus mean or something like that.
The tropical thing, yeah. Persian astrology at some points it's very different with Vedic, very similar to Vedic astrology, but very different. For the West, it's more similar to the Western traditional astrology. It has many similarities to Vedic astrology by its roots, but for the zodiac, I can tell you something really interesting, some story about the court of Akbar the Great in the 16th century. He had 4 astrologers in the court. 2 of them were doing tropical astrology, and 2 others were doing Persian sidereal astrology. Maulana Chand was actually tropical, Jyotish Raja or Nilakanta was sidereal, and Maulana Ilyas Ardebili, Fatullah Shiraz. There were four of them, and they casted four different charts. And it's really interesting about the coexistence of these four astrologers with four different techniques and four different interpretations, and all of them are published in the same book called Akbarnama. So it's very similar. And the branch of Persian astrology in Vedic system called Tajaka or Tajik astrology. Tajik astrology is actually the Persian astrology delivered to India and translated by Kesava and Nilakanta.
Okay. Do you mind to stop sharing? That way people can see you better.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next question. Who are the best translators of Persian manuscripts? And specifically, do you have a name that can be searched on academia.com?
Well, it's a very tough question. If you talk about the translations done so far, actually Charles Burnett and Benjamin Dyke has translated some works which seems quite good. But the problem is actually we don't have that much translations yet. I hope actually a new movement of translation happens soon.
Yeah, maybe that's something that you can do. Is it Mayor? I hope I'm saying your name right, but sounds like we need more people to do those translations. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Dr. Ben Dykes is somebody who's definitely published. Yeah. Okay, this is from Cameron. Have you found information that connects Unani medicine and astrology in a cohesive way?
But yes, actually, the Unani or medicine is this thing. Actually, it's a very common thing between Unani or Greek medicine and Persian medicine. So we have a lot of manuscripts that explains how to measure the temperaments and how to measure the humors of body according to the planets. So we have, for example, 60 factors to be considered about the hotness and dryness, about they carefully analyze that. Yes, we have there's a manuscript by Sajazi that explains it all.
Wonderful, thank you. And in terms of Persian mythology, is there a course available on that?
Actually, I have a course on that, but and it's really interesting because we have a calendar that every day has a name of a deity. So the first day of the month is called Hormaz Day, means the day for Ahura Mazda. Second day is the Vahuman Day, is the day of the Vahuman, is the deity for the good thoughts. And the third day is the Artavahishta, means actually best of this is very hard to translate right now. But Arta means the earth, and Vahishta means the heaven. It's like make the world as a heaven. So every day has its own unique name and its own deity, and so it's and its own ritual and its own mantras.
Wow.
But
I
he
know.
can find some of this information.
Yeah, there's a few people, I'm skipping ahead here, but there's a few questions that are asking about books. Are there any books that you could recommend? I think most people are looking
It's in
for.
Bundahesh. Yeah, in Bundahesh, the Book of Creation, we have a lot of this information in a mythological way, in a some prayers and the whole structure is explained there.
Wonderful. Is that available in English?
Yes, many translations have done on it.
Okay, and what was the name of the book again?
Bundahesh, I can write it somewhere.
Yeah, if you don't mind typing it in the chat box, I think that would be helpful.
Yes.
All right. Just giving Ehsan a moment to type that. Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. This person's asking about the bright, dark, empty degrees. Where can we learn more about them?
Well, I don't know where they are mentioned in the translated books, but I have some tables I can, if we have time, I can share with you.
Okay, yeah. Let's try to remember to do that at the end so we can get it in the video. So even if some of you have to go, we can get that in the recording. Okay, let's see. The next question is if you would have any information about poetry as part of the core astrology of Persia.
Yes, actually, I recently started two courses in Shiraz University. Uh, the first course is astrology in the literature, and the second course is astrology in Haft Peker of Nizami. Nizami has a poetry book named Haft Peker, Seven Bodies, and it's related to seven wives of him. Also, a building made according to astrological rules, and seven uh, parts of this building, this castle. Each belongs to a planet and each has its own planetary rules. And the stories have been told in each of these related to the astrological structure. So it's a very astrological poetry work, Haft Peker.
Okay.
I'll also write it in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is about remediation. Is there a method of remediation for challenging aspects like we've seen in Indian astrology?
Okay, that's a very good question. The remediation in Persian astrology includes the treating the time. The most important remedy is the treating the time. So the actually electional astrology helps us a lot to remedy the time. So we should find a good time to do something and a good time to not to do something. This is a big part of electional astrology. The next level of level of remedies is about the actually the way we change our attitudes. The attitude is very important in the remedies. And the third level, which is more Islamic and more, post-Islam remedies, and this in the Sufism is about the mantras and chanting some specific words of Quranic words, or repeating the mantras for that, reading some chapters of Quran and donations and some, and also it links with some occult system, occult sciences, doing some things, creating some magical squares or wearing some specific rings. These are different remedies. I didn't went deeply into that, but there are some information on that exists.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I see a couple people said they didn't see the messages that you were putting in the chat box. And Mary, if you don't mind, you might have already done this, but would you mind copying and pasting that to everyone so everyone can see? Thank you. Okay, next question. This was the same question about remedies, but also asking about medical astrology. Is there...
For medical astrology, we actually there are several things in medical astrology. One is about the moment the person goes to the doctor, and the horary of that moment is very important, because the moment the person goes to the doctor is the moment that the person is really feeling that he needs the help. So one formula for casting the horary is the moment that you see all the senses of the person is deeply involved in the situation. So it's a time that actually we cast the horary chart. So when the person goes to the doctor, it's a time to check the transit of the moment and also the chart of the person. And interestingly, we have some points, we call them the critical degrees for every month. They start actually, we have 8 points that when the sun travels from the moon after 12 degrees, 24 degrees, and then the quarter and the next opposite side. So there are 8 of them that when a planet placed on that point, it means that we have the aggregation of pain or aggregation of the problem. If the moon is not on that point, it means that it's a controllable disease. There are many rules in medical astrology, yes.
Yeah, that sounds like decumbrature. Would you say that it's similar
What?
in Western astrology? Decumbrature? I was just saying it sounds similar. Yeah, okay, sorry. Okay.
I haven't heard it, but later tell me about it.
Okay, all right. The next question is, what are the 7 hypothetical bodies?
Well, it also has a story. There are 7 bodies. It says there are 7 bodies which all the destruction of the world come from these 7. Their name are Kate, Sarmush, Zudobabe, Klab, Otaid, Koraim, Lahyani. So very strange names. And these 7 hypothetical bodies actually mentioned in Persian calendars. Uh, Years ago, I had an article about that and how to calculate them, but maybe I can find and send it to you.
Okay, yeah, and what I can do is compile anything you send to me and send it out to all of you in an email.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, let's see. I'm just gonna write that down. This is an interesting question. If you were to pull out some of the things from Persian astrology that's different than the Vedic astrology, Indian astrology, and Western, what do you think are kind of like the things that stand out?
Well, the first thing actually I see in Persian astrology is it's very comprehensive and it can easily employ parts of the other astrological systems. So, for example, it's really interesting about the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. It was a time that Persian astrology was diminishing. It was the end of, glory of Persian astrology, and it was the time that exactly Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto started to uh, discover. So they discovered that, and the modern astronomy also came to Iran at that time. So one of the few of the astrologers started to employ Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto into their calendars, and some other astrologers had objections about them. They were saying they don't exist, they don't have temperaments, we don't have information about them, and we cannot fit them into the system. The same happened in Vedic astrology, but now we see that, for example, it's few years that Vedic astrologers, actually the neo-Vedic astrologers, use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto as well. They created a dasha system having Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They decided to, instead of using the 13 degree and 20 minutes of nakshatras, they use 10 degrees, but also include Uranus and Neptune, Pluto in a dasha system. I guess Narendra Desai designed that. And or for example, some of our colleagues like Dennis Harness or but I forget their names, but many of the Vedic colleagues also use Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So I had this challenge also in Persian astrology, but I found a way which parts actually are open system and which parts are a closed system. So I conditionally add Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, Lilith, and other objects, some asteroids in Western astrology. And also I use nakshatras in a separate model. So I use tropical signs and sidereal nakshatras at the same time. So it gives us the opportunity to use nakshatras and some of more interesting features of Vedic astrology in Persian system. It was always open to, have the techniques from other systems.
Interesting. Okay, this is going to technique. What aspects are you looking for when you're checking the mother's chart concerning the baby?
Once again?
So when you're looking at a pregnant woman's chart, what aspects would you look for? And I mean, it's a pretty big question, but it's a question about aspects when you're looking at the pregnancy chart.
Okay, the moment the mother understands that she's pregnant, we cast the chart for the previous new moon or the full moon of that time, and we consider it as the first month of pregnancy. So on that time, we check the Saturn to see where is Saturn, in which bound Saturn is. We usually use the Egyptian bound. And then on that time, we consider this, the transit of Saturn during that month. So on the next month, we switch to Jupiter and we check the quality of the Jupiter. And for the next month, we check the quality of the Mars month by month. So if there is a danger or if there is a problem, we see actually we can warn the mother about that problem.
Okay. Let's see, what information provides the Aries ingress of the conception chart?
That's a good question. That's a very important question. You know, it's a sequence of charts. Before I go on, how much time we have?
It's we're right at the 90-minute mark, so it depends. Maybe we could, if you can stay a little bit later, we can maybe take a few more questions. It's up to you.
Yes, I'm okay. Okay, I'm okay. So you know, it's a sequence of time. Actually, sometimes we just say, okay, this is my chart, and I was born on this time and this moment, and this is my chart. But uh, if we go back for more few important charts, we see that actually I was born in a certain year for a reason, and I was born in a certain era for a reason, and I was born under. So the biggest cycle we start with is the Saturn and Jupiter cycle, but the Saturn and Jupiter also happened into a certain year. So we go back to the solar ingress of that year. Okay, this is the refreshment. This is the refreshment moment that on that year we have a great event, which is the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, happens every 20 years. So this is the background of that Saturn Jupiter. And then we have the Saturn Jupiter chart. And then we go on. Then we have a year, maybe 5 or 6 years after that. We have a year that a conception of a person happens. So that year also shows the background of that conception year for the social and for the family situation of the person. And then we have the conception. And then we have the new moon before the birth. So again, it's a time that father and mother, you know, when we say the new moon, it means that actually the father and mother came together. And when we say the full moon, it's the time to delivery. So it's a moment that the most dignified planet of that moment tells us a lot of information about the native. So in each of the charts, the most dignified and the most debilitated planet has a lot to tell us about that person. And we can say the person in a higher. So let me tell you something really interesting. And in 1841, I guess, 1841, it was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, first time in the Earth's triplicity. In 1881, we had another, the third one actually, 1841, 1861, and 1881. We had the third, the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction. And then Hitler was born in 1889 with the degree of the ascendant of the one from 1841, 60 years before himself. But this was the beginning of the cycle, so it's very important. And that cycle of the Earth's triplicity continued by the year 2020. So we had the influence of 1841 by 2020. You know, it was long time observation. And what happened in this December 2020, it still keeps going on. And if we track that chart and if we progress and perfect the planets, we see how does it match with the events these days.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Oh, this is interesting. What is modern Iran's view of astrology since you live there? Just kind of curious about the acceptance or lack of.
Well, here we have actually several point of views, the governmental point of view, the people, the scholars' point of view and the astrologers' point of view. From the astrologer's point of view, I see that Iranians are very interested in Western astrology. They read the horoscopes, they write the horoscopes, translate the different stuff of Western astrology. Also, many of them are interested in Vedic astrology. I know that actually a few thousand people are learning Western astrology, a few thousand people learning Vedic astrology, and the exact number, 2,000 people are learning Persian astrology. This is the astrologer's point of view, and we see that it grows. But from the scholars' point of view, many of them don't believe in astrology. But recently, uh, as a history of science, they are interested to learn astrology as an uh, uh, what is it? As a science between the sciences. So they noticed that they cannot study the, for example, literature without knowing astrology. They invite me, for example, to teach astrology to the literature students, and also the history of science people interested into rectifying the astrological works. So they also come to the history of astrology. So we see that some inclination among the scholars. From the governmental point of view, they don't like the uh, predictions, and they want to keep the things calm because when astrology comes, the conspiracy comes. When astrology comes, people judge, okay, this is the day actually they choose for these certain things and it happens. So they don't like that. But interestingly, this year a friend of mine invited me to actually case a file for record for nominate Persian astrology as an intangible heritage of Iran. And we did that. We nominated Persian astrology, Persian astrological calendar, and Persian traditional astronomy, three cases in national intangible heritage. So it was a big success for us. And we are going to do the same with Indians for the UNESCO. Maybe next year we can actually file that for UNESCO as well.
Wonderful. That's great. Okay, let's see. We're going back to astrology, and this question is about what is the emphasis of eclipse and eclipse cycles for natal, electional, and mundane?
Okay, for analyzing the eclipses, we also have a criteria. It's really interesting. We have criteria for anything. The time of effect when an eclipse happens, we should study where, when, how much, what is the trigger for that, and what is the agent for that. So we should find which planet is the agent to show the results of the eclipse, which planet is a trigger to show the results of this eclipse, when the results happens, where the result happens, on which land or which country. So it has a full criteria to find all of these influences. So for example, let me give you one example. On April this year, on April, we had a solar eclipse, and on that eclipse, I predicted something that might be happen in Iran, and it happened. Everybody knows what happened 2 months ago. And exactly, it was really interesting because after that eclipse, we had the Saturn Sun conjunction, the Saturn combustion time. So it was on the 9th degree of Pisces, and the president who died in the accident had South Node exactly on the 9th degree of Pisces in his chart. So it's a way actually we see the triggers and the way it works.
It's so interesting that you look at a lot of charts and how you go back and look at the charts from hundreds of years ago even. Yeah, great. Okay, next question. Did Vedic astrology impact Persian, or was it the other way around, or was it kind of like both directions?
Interestingly, it was a big interaction between Iranian and Indians. Actually, Vedic astrology, as its name it namesakes. It's based on the Vedas, Vedangas, and Vedic literature and Vedic culture. So delivered by the rishis in a very certain way, delivered by a tradition of Shruti and Simriti. So it had its very own specific concepts of development, very specific in a Vedic way. Persian system is more open to accepting other philosophies and other technologies, other techniques. But at one time, Persians adopted some techniques from Indians, and Indians took some techniques from Persians. So what came from Persia to India became Tajika astrology or the Tajik astrology, and annual charts or Varshapal. And what actually came from India to Iran is the rich information about the nakshatras and the lunar mansions.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, this is a long question. I'm just going to read it. I noticed that the Persian chart of the world uses the exaltation placement for each planet, where the Western Thema Mundi puts each planet in its domicile under the horizon. Is exaltation considered preferable to domicile placement in Persian astrology?
Exactly. As I mentioned, the technique Fardar or Firdaria is based on the exaltation. Far is the light, and exaltation is the light. So we have a certain criteria: light and darkness, the dualities, and highness and lowness. So the planets above the horizon are more respected for the below the horizon. The planets in the north are respected more than the south. That's why, for example, when, for example, a planet moves from its northern course, for example, the sun passes from the Capricorn, comes up, and starts his northern course, we celebrate. And then we also have this concept of exaltation and debilitation, which also belongs to the light and darkness, because the exalted planet has more light, and the debilitated planet has no light.
Okay.
That's why exaltation is more preferred
Okay.
in our techniques.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, this is another long one, so I'll read it. Do you use the 32-year calendar with animal totem and anti-totem? Let's see, this Margarita studied it in astrological alma mater in Zoroastrian Avestic school in Russia many years ago. So the question is, what percent would you say of Persian astrology is Zoroastrian tradition?
Well, actually, there is something I couldn't figure out about the global school of astrology, the Zoroastrian school of astrology established in Russia. They say that actually it's based on Zoroastrian astrology, but I found it very subjective. I couldn't find the exact, I couldn't find it. I can't say it's not, but I cannot say it is, because I couldn't find that properly Avestan or properly uh, Zoroastrian as far as my knowledge goes. And about the 32-year animal, I haven't seen that in uh, any of the texts. I've seen the 60-year calendar of Chinese applied by Nasruddin Tusi. Also the sexenary cycles of Indians we have, and the 12 animal years of the Chinese also involved in the Persian calendar, but not the 32 years. I haven't seen that anywhere.
Okay, thank you. So for those of you asking about books, Ehsan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said look for the translations by Dr. Benjamin Dykes.
Yes, there are enough books done by him.
Okay. And you didn't mention any others. Were there any
And also translations of recent translations of Charles Burnett of the books of Abu Mashar.
Okay. And hopefully somebody can pop that spelling into the chat box. Okay, let's see. Could you talk a little more about perfections being 13 months?
Yes. When we say 13, and we say one sign a year, and we say 13 signs a year, the result is the same. But when we say actually 13 signs a year, it means that a full rotation and one. It means 390 degrees for 360 degrees. So we have a 360 degrees for the sun to travel, and then we have 390 degrees because it goes one sign further. So we can divide it by 12. It will be 32 degree and 30 minutes for a month. So when sun travels for one sign, it will be one sign and 2 degree and 30 minutes, one divided assumption, or 1/12 of the sign. And then if you take 1 degree, it will be 1 degree and 5 seconds. So for one day, you can go day by day. So if it's, for example, your age of 25, the first house will be the yearly perfection. But after 1 month, you can go one sign and 2 degrees. And for next, let's say 5 days, you can add more 5 degrees. So you can find the degree of perfection. If you do this, for example, for the case of Bill Gates' divorce, you see that actually it was the exact day that that perfection point, the daily perfection comes into his, if I'm not mistaken, either his Saturn or his part of, yes, his Saturn, because he has Saturn and Venus together. It reaches exactly the same point, and he got divorced. So
Wow.
we can track it for daily things.
And does your software program do that? Do those 13
Yes, Windows Astrology software does it.
Hindu? Okay. Because I've never seen that in other software. So that's really interesting. So if you want the 13-year perfection, you have to have Bindu software. Is that right?
Yeah,
There you go.
at least one.
Okay, the next question is, does the Fardar have more than one subdivision in Persian astrology? How many guidelines are there for interpreting them?
Well, that's a very good question. Actually, we have three types of Fardar. One type of Fardar is the regular version, which is known everywhere. It just starts from the sun for the day and the moon for the night. The other version of Fardar it starts from the exaltation planet of your ascendant. So if, for example, if you are a Virgo, it starts from Mercury. If you are an Aries ascendant, it starts from the sun, and it goes on the order of exaltation. Another version is that actually it starts from the ruler of the ascendant. So we have three versions of Fardar.
Wow. And that's Fardaria, right? Is that the
Yeah,
same?
exactly.
Yeah, just for those of you. Okay. That's so interesting. Well, then curious, the exaltation method, if not every sign is
Yes. For Leo, for example, yeah, we take this next sign. For Leo, for example, we start from Mercury again.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to save a couple of these questions for the end. Does Persian astrology also utilize numerology?
Yes, we have a very vast concept of connecting the letters and words and the numbers to astrology. First of all, we have a numeral system that actually we can convert any name to numbers and any numbers to names, and also we can actually associate different things to the alphabet. So, for example, when we say the first letter A, we call it Aleph. It's a fiery number. The fiery letter, its value is 1, and it's a spiritual type. It can be a spiritual, earthly, or heavenly, and it can be, for example, it has many different things. And then that letter belongs to a planet. Every letter belongs to some of the planets. So letter A belongs to Saturn, for example. Letter J, for example, belongs to Saturn. Letter H belongs to Saturn, and letter V or W belongs to Jupiter, for example. So we have several versions of associated the letters into the planets, and then sometimes, for example, for naming a baby, you can have the chart and choose the alphabet related to the planets for naming a baby, or sometimes in horary, if you want to actually find the name of the thief or uh, the one who, for example, you want to anyway, you want to find a name, then you can actually use that letter system. But as we use the Persian and Arabic alphabets, it's a little bit tough to convert every name from other languages.
Yes. Okay, what's the proper name for the Persian astrology? Do you call it Arabic, Persian, Tajik?
That's a very good point. We say Persian astrology, and some people say, mostly scholars say Arabic astrology. They call it Arabic astrology because many of the sources are in Arabic, but it's not Arabic because Arabic was the official language of that time, and everybody was writing in Arabic. Like for example, if somebody in India writes in English today, we cannot call him an English uh, astrologer. It means that actually that Indian wrote in English. So the same goes to for Iranians, as Arabic was the language of academic language of that time. So many Persians wrote in Arabic. So scholars mistakenly actually translate use the Arabic astrology for Arabic astrological works. We call it Persian astrology, and in Persian we have terms for that. Akhtar Mari. Akhtar means a star. The same word, Akhtar, a star. Akhtar Mari, and it means counting and analyzing the stars.
Okay, thank you. There are, I think, a couple of people asked about the Iranian belief about the three magi from the Bible story.
Yeah. Well, actually, the story mentioned there, and there is a big controversy about the Christian history amongst Iranian. One scholar, for example, presented the things that actually we have two Christ. One is the Jesus Christ we know with the mentioned date around the time of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the end of the Pisces. It was a triple conjunction at the end of Pisces, early Aries, and then retrograde again. And then some other, and it's really interesting because it's also about the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. We see once it happened, and we also have because it started at 0 Aries, it was a mighty conjunction, and it affects on until we have it next time in 2030s, 2300 something. So in next 300 years, we will finish the cycle of 2880 years. And it's interesting. It's 2300 years, but it's 2880 conjunction years because we have a definition of conjunction year, which is exactly 20 conjunction years, but it might be 18 years or 17 years or 19 years, something like this. And about the three magi, definitely they were Persians, but we also have some names for them. But actually, there is a mm, question here. Did they find Jesus or did they make Jesus? It's a controversy amongst the scholars, regardless of the religious beliefs, because actually we also have some evidences of the Jesus for 600 years before that. So we have two Jesus defined in Persian culture and the Persian texts. So it's a matter of controversy.
Ah, okay, interesting. Let's see, in your explanation of Persian astrology, how relevant is the karmic axis of the moon's nodes, the lunar nodes? Does it follow the method of the Vedic understanding, or is it diminished by other considerations?
Well, about the nodes, nodes in Persian astrology, nodes are not really in the family of the planets. So they're like the wandering shadows, and they are not counted in many. Even, for example, we don't use the aspects between the planets and the nodes. We see the occultations, but we don't we don't have them in many of the techniques. About the karmic axis, actually, we don't have karma in Persian astrology as we have in Vedic system. But we say that the north node always increasing and the south node is always decreasing. So the north node always gives aggregates the quality of the planet associated with, and the south node always diminish the quality of the planet associated with. There is one exception, is that south node works better with the malefics and north node works better with the benefics. So the conjunction of Jupiter and Rahu is one of the most wishful conjunctions that actually they say if you do some prayers on that time, it grants you all the wishes you have on the day of Saturn and on the day of North Node, Rahu, and Jupiter. So it was just 2 years ago, I guess.
Wow, thank you. Okay, I think this is the last question before we talk about your classes, because there's a couple of questions on that. So the question is, do you use the date of birth minus 270 days for the conception chart?
No, it varies according to the position of the moon. So if you have a birth time, you check the position of the moon if it's above the horizon. Actually, we have 4 kind of charts first. We have diurnal charts, nocturnal charts, conjunctional charts, and oppositional charts. So it depends actually which 4 months you were born after a full moon or the new moon, you are diurnal or nocturnal, and then moon is above the horizon or below the horizon. Then you choose the distance of the moon and the horizon and take the ratio from the full 274 days, and then it might be more or less. We have some tables for that to find the proper days, how many days the baby is the mother's womb. And there are some calculations for that.
Okay, wonderful. So somebody was asking, what time is it in Iran right now?
Well, it's 10 p.m. and 30 minutes.
Yeah, so it is late. Thank you so much for staying with us so late. All right, we're on the last 2 questions. The first one is, do you offer your classes in English?
Pretty soon.
Okay, so not yet, but coming soon.
Yes.
Wonderful. And then how do people contact you if they want to take your class? Which website do they go to?
Actually, they can contact me at ehsan.khazeni@gmail.com, or they can send me a message on Instagram or Telegram.
Okay. And I know Mary's already put those links in the webinar chat. Maybe we can pop them in again real quick as we say our thank yous. We have come to the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation and for answering all of those questions. We very much appreciate it. And
Thank you so much. It was an immense pleasure for me. It was a great opportunity for me to present Persian astrology in KeplerCollege, and I really missed the first one for the March event, and I was so upset that I missed that. So I really thankful for you, the KeplerCollege, for giving me this opportunity, and also thank you, Mary, for managing all the comments and all the.
Yes.
Oh, she's here.
Oh, she is. So yes, thank you, Mary, for helping in the chat box, and thank you so much, Ehsan. We were so happy to have you today. And if you don't know what Ehsan's talking about, is we wanted him to speak at our astrology day, and we weren't able to make that happen. So we got him to speak anyway. So thank you. I don't know if you're seeing the emojis.
Yeah.
The
Thank you so much, Lori, for yeah. Thank you so much, Lori, and thank you, Mary. And thank you everybody for attending this event.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure for having you. So thank you. And hopefully we'll see you next week for our US Solar Returns webinar. And you will be able to catch this replay on our YouTube channel later this week. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
See you next time. Thank you. Bye.